Without further ado, I'd like to welcome William and Paul up to the stage. Everybody give them a hand. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, TR.
Thanks a lot, TR.
So I met Paul, a decade ago?
A decade ago, no? Yes, around.
Maybe 8-9 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was a VC, actually a pretty newly minted VC. I'd only been in the market like 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So we met, and at that time, there weren't that many sort of internet startup companies, internet and software startup companies in Taiwan. So if you don't mind, sort of introduce like your background and kind of what were you doing 7-8 years ago when we first met?
Okay. At that moment, I was still the employee in MediaTek. MediaTek is in Chinese called 联发科. Okay, I'm still in MediaTek. I'm in charge of the software and ecosystem services. And we find out some pain point of the software over-the-air update services. Because MediaTek sell the mobile phone chipsets. And he sell to the mobile phone ODM, and ODM sell to the mobile phone OEM, like LG, Sony, Huawei, Xiaomi, Oppo, Vivo, these kind of mobile phone players. So we saw lots of they have the pain point of the software update because Google provide a tool, provide the Android OTA tool to them. But most of the company, they don't have the team to doing that. So I find out this issue, and I proposed to the company, which is MediaTek, and they say, our core business is mobile phone chipset, and it's not the software. So later on, I decided to go for my entrepreneurship. Of course, there are lots of the issue back and forth, but still, I decided to go on my own startup. And then, of course, it's always very, very difficult when you start the company, especially the mobile internet service company in Taiwan, because Taiwan, the home market is very, very small. So the first day you start, you need to think of the global. And I'm quite lucky there because I have the background of the MediaTek, and then MediaTek lots of the global customer in China, in Southeast Asia, India, Europe and Latin America. So I just follow MediaTek pace, and then that's helped me to get my first bunch of the internet users, and then I follow the MediaTek pace. So actually, and then I met William. When you have a certain business, you also need to have the funding. So you need to balance if you are a startup company. So this pretty lucky to meet William, and that's.
So if you're an internet software person, so you're an internet software person in a hardware world, which is a lot of the people here are. So what's the best way to communicate, or how do you pitch, or how do you? I mean, of course, to some extent you failed. With MediaTek because we're a chipset company. But what's any tips on how to explain the internet and software pitch to people who have more of a hardware background? Yeah,
in most of the Asian hardware company, they don't have the mindset of paying software. In their mind, they only thinking of paying a hardware component in their supply chain. But in their supply chain, they never had the item is a software payment. Of course, they will pay for, when they implement the ERP, when they implement SAP, when they implement Microsoft, they pay Microsoft Windows, they pay Microsoft Office, and they pay Salesforce CRM, but they never have the idea of paying the software in their mindset, in most of the company. So it's not easy for us to convince them to pay the royalty of each software licensing. So I spend lots of the effort to convince them this is the very, very important things. And it's not easy to accept, but still I try to convince them. And I need more money, more time to convince them. So fundraising become very critical for me.
So speaking of fundraising, so I invested maybe 7 years ago, but let's not talk about what we did. What was it like to be an entrepreneur back then, or even now, in internet and software here trying to raise money? There's international VCs, there's Taiwan VCs. Maybe talk a little bit about what it was like before, just so people can understand how hard it was. But it would also be great. I mean, you're now an angel now. What is it like now?
It's never been easy to be the entrepreneurship to do the fundraising. First, VC is in a very small circle, and VC is very local. So if you want to pitch, for example, you are in Taiwan, first, you will pitch Taiwan VC. And Taiwan VC, if you are saying your market is only in Taiwan, and Taiwan VC were not interested, because they will think the upside is very, very limited, because they will say, oh, our market, Taiwan market is very, very small, and you are doing the internet. I think the big internet company always happen in China, in US, probably right now India. India also grow quite big. So internet, you need to be in the local big markets in order for success. So for the small market like Taiwan or even like Singapore, we are the small, or Hong Kong, we are the small market. So first day you need to think of global. And you need to pick the market you want to go, because you cannot say, oh, first day I want to do India, I want to do China, I want to do US all together. It's not possible, because you are a very small team, you have no money, you have very limited resources. So you need to really focus on the market, focus on your resources to do, in order to do the first day success. And then you can think of the next market.
Good. So for now, has it changed at all? Is fundraising still that similarly difficult, or is it getting a little bit harder for folks here in Taiwan, internet software entrepreneurs, to fundraise?
As I say, VC look at the few things. Number one, your personal credit. The personal credit means what kind of thing you do before to prove you already success. Or the job you did in a big corporation, you did a great project with a great performance, and that can, from this, your past tracking record to judge you if you are the potential people. They want to invest the potential. They want to see if you are the potential candidate they can invest, they can trust, because sometimes you need long time to create a trustworthy relationship with your investor. Think about yourself. If you want to invest, some people like $1 million. I want to ask you all the questions. If you want to invest, some people $1 million, or even $2 million, $3 million, you need to trust that people. You need to trust. Otherwise, how come you can know if they could get your money and run it somewhere? They never know. So they need to, from all kind of the benchmark, to trust you. So that kind of little things you did. First, they will search you from the Google, and then make sure you don't have the criminal record, and then see what's your background and what things you do, and anything you did can see is a success, and we can have the talk. So normally, I'm the entrepreneur, and I'm also the investor. So sometimes I will see, I'm not saying the presentation you did is not important, but more important is yourself, the person. What we see is the person. The person, your personality, your person credibility, your capability is all important, equally important to judge. Yeah.
So, I mean, you started off, I didn't actually introduce Paul, sorry, but he's the founder and CEO of a company called GMobi. And General Mobile, GMobi, started off 8-9 years ago. And they have the GMobi product. And now, actually, you've got a new product line. It's almost like a startup within a startup. So you did this, the first GMobi business 7 or 8 years ago, 9 years ago. In the last 2 years, you did basically another startup, Car OTA or Carota. Can you talk about the second time around? What are the differences What are the things that you learned from the first time that you applied to the second time? Just one or two. And then also, what's another mistake that you still made, or a mistake that you made with Carota? It's almost like your second startup.
Yeah, my first startup is 8 years ago, and then I sold it in almost 2 years ago to a Los Angeles-based company, and now they are about to go in IPO in London this coming quarters. And it's kind of the exit for my first startup. And then I took the same technology. We use the OTA technology in the mobile phone. Now we use that technology. We try to redevelop for the IoT and automotive. So now, like Tesla, if you drive the Tesla, you can push the button on your display, IVI, and then you can do the over-the-air update. You can download the autonomous driving program they call Autopilot. And we actually do the same thing for lots of the automotive brand other than Tesla. So in China, we did more than 10 automakers in China. And we do this kind of the over-the-air update service for all automotive electronic control unit. And we update the whole software. And the same. And if you say, then I kind of spin off from the original company, and I create the second company called Carota. And on this second company, when there is a bunch of investors also invest us, and of course they want to see my track record in past 7 years. So they want to see if my first startup is success or not, and then they want to see how I can repeat my success experience in this second startup before they invest. So I need to repeat the same success, story and success factor. And of course, I also doing some mistake. Normally, people will incline to make the mistake again. So this is very usual. And then normally what I do is I try not to hire the wrong candidate. And because people is always the core. And most of the engineer and most of the core team is follow me for many long time. So I can trust them fully. So that's what I understand and want to share my experience to all of you.
Yeah, last question. So MOX, we focus on going cross-border. And it's not an easy thing to do. So with GMobi, and maybe now with Carota, I don't know, but you had a base here in Taiwan. You had a pretty large base in China, and also a large office in India. So what are the challenges that you faced, and sort of how did you overcome having 3 teams, 3 different markets, a bunch of different languages and different cultures, and how did you make that work?
Because I'm Taiwanese, so my home language is Mandarin, okay? But I try to convince all my employees, our official language inside the company is English. So if there is a meeting, there's a conference close to India, China, Europe, and Taiwan, so we always use English as communication language. And then we implement the same system. So I bring in the CIM of the Salesforce, and then we use a Trello as a unified project tracking system, and we also using the DocuSign for e-signing. So everything is cloud-based because we need the cloud for collaboration. So everything we do is cloud-based, and we use the same language to communicate to each other. And when normally we do daily communication, because communication is so important. And then not only daily communication, you also need to hire the right people. Hire the right country manager is damn important. Because if you cannot trust him, please don't hire him unless you can fully trust him. Because we are close to the country. We have Indian operation, we have Shanghai operation, we have Frankfurt operation, we have San Diego operation, we have Taipei operation. So if I don't trust anyone, I will be very, very tired because I need to fly everywhere. I don't have that time and I don't have that body to support the long haul flight all the time. So trust people, do the daily communication with the technology help, and this is very important.
So thanks, Paul. So Paul's actually one of our awesome mentors. He helped found MOX and get MOX running, and we also invested in his company. So thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you, William. Thank you so much.